I watched myself die in a dream, then found my own clothes in the woods. I've always been a vivid dreamer. Since childhood, my nights have been populated with technicolor landscapes and scenarios so realistic, I sometimes confuse them with memories. My mother called it an overactive imagination. My ex-wife called it exhausting when I'd wake her to recount them. But the dream I had 3 weeks ago was different. It wasn't just vivid, it wasn't just realistic, it was prophetic. It began as I dozed off on a Sunday night. The familiar sensation of falling that often precedes deep sleep. Except this time, the falling didn't stop. I plummeted through darkness until suddenly finding myself standing in Mercer Woods, a small nature preserve about a mile from my house. I recognized the location immediately, the distinctive lightning-scarred oak that marked the entrance to the Purple Trail, my preferred weekend hiking route. In the dream, I watched myself walking along the trail, not from a first-person perspective, but as an observer floating slightly above and behind my own body. Dream me wore what I had worn that day: khaki hiking pants, a navy blue thermal Henley, and my well-worn Timberland boots. A light rain was falling, beating on the shoulders of my green waxed canvas jacket. I followed myself deeper into the woods as twilight descended, the path growing darker beneath the canopy of still bare March trees. Dream me seemed unconcerned, moving with purpose despite the fading light. When I reached Hunter's Ridge, a rocky outcropping that offers a view of the valley below, I stopped and checked my watch, as if waiting for something or someone. The air grew suddenly still. The ambient forest sounds, birds, rustling leaves, distant stream, all ceased at once, leaving an unnatural silence. Dream me tensed, sensing the change. He turned slowly, scanning the tree line. That's when I saw it emerge from between the trees, a figure that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the dim twilight. Humanoid, but wrong somehow, its proportions subtly distorted. Too tall, limbs too thin, movements too fluid as it glided rather than walked toward my dream self. I tried to shout a warning but produced no sound. I was merely an observer, helpless to intervene. Dream me back toward the edge of the ridge, fumbling for his phone. The figure accelerated with unnatural speed, closing the distance in 2 impossible strides. A hand, pale and elongated with too many joints, shot out and grasped my dream self by the throat. I felt it, not just witnessed it, felt it. The ice-cold fingers, the pressure cutting off my airway, the panic flooding my system. Dream me struggled as the figure lifted him off the ground effortlessly. I floated closer, desperate to see the entity's face beneath its hood, but there was only shadow where features should be, a darkness deeper than the gathering night. It spoke without moving, words that seemed to materialize directly in my mind rather than travel through air. You shouldn't have seen. You weren't meant to know. With a casual flick of its wrist, it flung my dream self backward off the ridge. I watched my body arc through the air, arms windmilling uselessly, before disappearing into the darkness below. I heard the impact, a sickening thud followed by silence. My perspective shifted instantly. No longer observing from above, I was suddenly in my falling body, feeling the momentary weightlessness, the rush of air, then the explosive pain as I struck the ground. I felt ribs shatter, felt the vertebrae in my neck compress and snap, felt blood filling my lungs as I gasped for air that wouldn't come. I felt myself die. I woke violently, sitting upright in bed, drenched in sweat and clutching at my throat. My alarm clock displayed 3:17 a.m. For several minutes, I simply breathed, reassuring myself it was just a nightmare, albeit the most visceral one I'd ever experienced. The phantom pain in my neck and chest lingered as I shuffled to the bathroom for water. In the mirror, I noticed something that sent ice through my veins. A ring of faint bruising around my throat, precisely where the figure's hand had grasped me. I told myself it was coincidence. Perhaps I had unknowingly grabbed my own neck during the nightmare. Perhaps the marks were from something else entirely. My shirt collar, an allergic reaction, anything but confirmation that what had happened in the dream had somehow affected my physical body. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, the bruises had faded to nearly nothing, allowing me to rationalize them away. I went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, normal activities that helped ground me in reality and distance me from the nightmare. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The precision of the dream location, Hunter's Ridge at twilight, and the physical aftermath troubled me. At lunch, I found myself researching deaths in Mercer Woods, scrolling through local news archives. Nothing significant appeared. A heart attack on the Blue Trail in 2015. A teen who broke his leg in 2019. No mysterious falls or unexplained disappearances. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt a growing unease, a certainty that the dream contained some warning I needed to understand. After work, I drove to the woods. I told myself it was to reassure myself, to stand on Hunter's Ridge in broad daylight and dispel the lingering dread from the nightmare. The early spring afternoon was bright and mild, the parking lot populated with a few other hikers' vehicles. Perfectly normal. Safe. I took the purple trail, walking briskly, nodding to the occasional hikers I passed. When I reached Hunter's Ridge, I stood for a while, looking out over the valley. No elongated figures emerged from the trees. No sense of unnatural silence descended, just birds calling, leaves rustling, my own steady breathing. Just a dream, I said aloud, feeling foolish but slightly relieved. As I turned to head back, something caught my eye, a flash of color down the steep slope below the ridge, partially hidden among early spring undergrowth. Probably trash left by careless hikers, I thought. But some impulse made me find a safe route down to investigate. What I found stopped my heart momentarily. A green waxed canvas jacket. My green waxed canvas jacket, the one hanging in my hall closet at home. Except here it was, muddied and torn, draped over a fallen log. Beside it, barely visible in the loamy soil, was the distinct toe of a hiking boot. I scrambled forward, my breath coming in quick gasps. The boot, a Timberland, size 11, my size, was connected to khaki hiking pants, navy thermal Henley. All my clothes, arranged as if still containing a body, though they lay flat against the ground. The exact outfit from my dream. The exact outfit still hanging in my closet at home. I backed away, bile rising in my throat. This couldn't be real. I was still dreaming, or hallucinating, or losing my mind. I fumbled for my phone with trembling hands, managed to take several photos, then fled back up the slope and out of the woods. At home, I confirmed what I already knew. My hiking clothes hung exactly where they should be in my closet. The jacket showed no tears. The boots were unmuddied. Yet the photos on my phone clearly showed those same items discarded at the base of Hunter's Ridge. Sleep was impossible that night. I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, hunting for any rational explanation. Doppelganger with identical taste in clothes, elaborate prank, psychotic break. None seemed more plausible than what I increasingly feared, that my dream had shown me something that had happened, or would happen, to me in some parallel reality that was bleeding into my own. The next day, I called in sick and returned to the woods with a small shovel. The clothes still lay where I had found them. I steeled myself and began to dig beneath them, dreading what I might find, but needing to know. 6 inches down, the soil turned darker. Another 6 inches revealed the unmistakable curve of bone. I dropped the shovel and stumbled backward, overwhelmed with horror and the sudden certainty that I shouldn't be there. A crawling sensation between my shoulder blades made me whirl around, scanning the trees. Nothing, no one, but the feeling of being watched intensified. I fled again, leaving the shallow excavation and the clothes behind. In the safety of my car, I debated calling the police. How would I explain any of this? That I dreamed my own death, then found evidence it had actually occurred despite being very much alive. They would think I was confessing to murder, or that I was having a breakdown. Either way, police involvement seemed more likely to complicate than resolve the situation. That evening, my phone rang with an unfamiliar local number. Hello? Is this Daniel Weston? A woman's voice, clinical and formal. Yes, speaking. Mr. Weston, this is Dr. Eleanor Reed from Lakeside Memorial Hospital. Your emergency contact information was found on a patient brought in this afternoon. A hiker discovered him unconscious at the base of Hunter's Ridge. He had no identification except a phone with your number listed as, in case of emergency. My mouth went dry. There must be some mistake. I haven't listed anyone as my emergency contact since my divorce. The patient is currently sedated but stable. However, this is where things become unusual. He's asking for you by name. He says he's you. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What did you say? I know how this sounds, Mr. Weston. The attending physician suggested it might be a confused relative, perhaps someone with dementia who fixated on your contact information. But given the circumstances, we thought it best to call. What circumstances? Dr. Reed hesitated. The patient bears a striking resemblance to the driver's license photo we found in your records. And his injuries, they're consistent with a fall from height, multiple fractures, internal bleeding, spinal trauma. It's actually remarkable he survived. The phantom pain from my dream flared in my chest and neck. I'll be right there. The hospital corridors seemed to stretch and contract as I followed Dr. Reed to the ICU. She spoke in measured tones about privacy protocols and the unusual nature of the situation, but her words barely registered. My entire focus was directed at what waited behind the door she eventually stopped before. I should prepare you, she said. He's heavily sedated and intubated. The fall caused significant trauma. I nodded mechanically. Also, she continued, her professional demeanor slipping slightly. I've been practicing medicine for 15 years. I've seen identical twins, doppelgangers, strong family resemblances. This is different. If I didn't know better, I would say you're the same person. She pushed the door open. The figure in the bed was wrapped in bandages, connected to machines that beeped and hummed, measuring out the rhythm of a life barely sustained. A breathing tube obscured much of his face. But what was visible was unmistakable. My face. Not similar, identical. The same small scar through the left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. The same slightly crooked nose broken during college intramural basketball. The same me. This isn't possible, I whispered. Dr. Reed checked the monitors. His condition has deteriorated since admission. We're doing everything we can, but his injuries are catastrophic. The trauma surgeon called it a mechanical separation event. Essentially, his body was subjected to forces it wasn't designed to withstand. Just like in my dream. Has he said anything else before you sedated him? She hesitated. He was delirious upon arrival. He kept repeating that it knows now and it's coming for the other one. We assumed it was trauma-induced confusion. A cold weight settled in my stomach. When did the hiker find him? Late yesterday afternoon, around dusk. He called emergency services from the trail. Response time was approximately 20 minutes. Yesterday. While I was at work, answering emails and attending meetings, some version of me was dying at the base of Hunter's Ridge, exactly as I had dreamed the night before. Can I have a moment alone with him? I asked. Dr. Reed nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. I approached the bed cautiously, as if the broken figure might suddenly lunge at me. Up close, the resemblance was even more impossible to deny. This wasn't someone who looked like me. This was me, down to the faint freckle pattern visible on the exposed portion of his neck. "Who are you?" I whispered. The monitors continued their steady rhythm. No response. I leaned closer. "What did you see? What's coming for me?" His eyelids flickered. The heart rate monitor registered a slight acceleration. Suddenly, his hand shot up and grasped my wrist with surprising strength. His eyes opened, my eyes, bloodshot and desperate. The breathing tube prevented speech, but he pulled me closer, his gaze burning with urgent communication. With his free hand, he made a writing motion. I fumbled in my pocket for a pen and offered him the back of a hospital brochure from the bedside table. His writing was shaky but legible, my own handwriting, but created by a dying hand. Not dream. Memory. It crosses boundaries, finds versions of you who see it, removes them. Don't go back to Woods. Don't look for it. Already too many of us dead. The pen dragged across the paper as his strength faltered. One last line. I'm the 7th. You'll be 8th if... The monitors suddenly screamed into alarm. His hand went slack, the pen clattering to the floor. Medical personnel flooded the room, pushing me aside as they worked to resuscitate the failing body. I backed against the wall, clutching the note, watching them try to save a version of myself. After 5 minutes of increasingly desperate measures, the doctor called time of death. As they covered his face with a sheet, I slipped out, the note burning in my pocket. The police contacted me the next day. The deceased had carried no identification except a phone with my contact information. Given the extraordinary physical resemblance, they needed to rule out various scenarios: unknown twin, identity theft, fraud. I answered their questions as truthfully as I could without sounding insane. No, I had no twins. No, I hadn't lost my identification. No, I didn't recognize the deceased despite the resemblance. Yes, it was extraordinarily strange. DNA testing was mentioned. I agreed, knowing it would only deepen the mystery. After they left, I spread the note on my kitchen table and stared at it for hours, trying to make sense of its implications. Not dream, memory. It crosses boundaries. What boundaries? Between worlds, realities, dimensions? I'm the 7th. The 7th what? The 7th version of me? Had 6 others already encountered the entity from my dream and died? And what had he started to write after "You'll be 8th if I go back to the woods, if I look for it, if I keep digging into this impossible situation?" That night, I dreamed again. Not the falling dream, but something new. I stood in a vast circular chamber with 8 identical doors spaced evenly around the perimeter. 7 were open, revealing only darkness beyond. The 8th, directly in front of me, remained closed. In the center of the chamber stood the hooded figure from my previous dream. It turned slowly, that same featureless shadow where a face should be. "You shouldn't have seen," it communicated without speaking. "None of you should have seen." "Seen what?" I asked, surprising myself by having a voice in this dream. "The seams between your worlds, the paths we use to travel. Humans who perceive us must be removed. Your kind is not ready for the knowledge." "You've been killing versions of me," I accused. "Why? What did we do?" "You looked into the spaces between realities. You glimpsed our passage. Such perception is dangerous. It thins the boundaries further, allowing more crossover, more contamination." It gestured to the 7 open doors. "These versions of you have been removed. Only you remain. The 8th Daniel Weston, who saw what should not be seen." "But I don't understand what I saw. I just had a dream." "Not a dream. A bleed-through. You perceived another version of yourself dying at our hand. Such perception creates connection. Connection creates vulnerability. The boundaries weaken further." It glided toward me, those 2 long fingers extending. "We had contained the damage to the 7th iteration of you, but he reached through to you, warned you. Now you know too much. The contamination spreads." I backed toward the closed door behind me. "What are you going to do?" "What we always do. Remove the perception. Maintain the boundaries." "By killing me? Like you killed the others?" "Death is your concept. We simply relocate the consciousness that has seen too much." It was almost upon me now, its hand reaching for my throat. I fumbled behind me for the doorknob of the 8th door. "That door leads back to your world," the entity communicated. "But we will follow. We always follow those who have seen us. There is nowhere in your reality we cannot reach." My fingers closed around the knob. "Then I'll be ready," I said with a confidence I didn't feel. "Now I know you're coming." "Many versions of you have said the same. All have failed." I twisted the knob and fell backward through the doorway as its cold fingers brushed my skin. I woke, gasping, dawn light filtering through my bedroom window. The phantom sensation of icy fingers lingered on my throat. The DNA results came back a week later, 100% match. Scientifically impossible, the police said, unless the deceased was my identical twin. They began investigating hospital records, adoption agencies, looking for evidence of a separated at birth scenario. They wouldn't find anything. I already knew the truth, as impossible as it was. The body was me, another version of me from another reality who had encountered the entity and been removed. I've spent the last 2 weeks preparing. I avoid the woods. I've installed additional locks and security cameras. I sleep with lights on and weapons nearby. I've written down everything that's happened, storing copies in different locations. But I know locks won't stop it. Weapons probably won't harm it. It exists between realities, using paths and means I can barely comprehend. IT crosses boundaries, finds versions of you who see it. Last night I dreamed of the chamber again. All 8 doors stood open now. The figure waited in the center, patient and inevitable. Soon, it communicated, the 8th door cannot remain closed forever. I woke to find my bedroom window open, the window I'm certain I locked before sleeping. On the floor beneath it, a small clump of forest soil and a scrap of green canvas fabric. It's found me, just as it found 7 other versions of me across 7 other realities. I'm writing this now as dawn approaches. I don't know if it will come tonight or tomorrow or next week, but it will come. The entity that exists between worlds, that relocates those who perceive it. I've placed cameras throughout my house, set to upload footage automatically to secure cloud storage. I've left instructions with my attorney to be opened in the event of my disappearance or death. I've done everything I can think of to document what's happening, to leave evidence that might help the authorities understand, even if they can't believe. But most importantly, I've done what the 7th version of me tried to do with his dying strength. I've warned others. If you ever dream of watching yourself die, and then find evidence that it actually happened, run. Don't investigate, don't try to understand. The knowledge itself is what marks you for removal. And if you ever see a tall figure with 2 long limbs and a featureless shadow for a face, know that it's already too late. You've seen what humans aren't meant to see. You've perceived the spaces between realities, and it will find you just as it's found me. The sun is rising. I hear something moving on the roof, too heavy for squirrels or birds, too deliberate. The temperature in my office has dropped suddenly. My breath fogs in the air. It's here. I'm the 8th Daniel Weston. There won't be a 9th. But perhaps somewhere across the boundaries between worlds, there's another version of me who will dream of my death tonight, who will receive this warning and find a way to survive what I could not. If that's you reading this, I'm sorry. The dream you just had wasn't a dream. And those clothes you're about to find in the woods, they're